why.
It's because, you know, I look so good without.
What's the secret reason? Do you remember something?
What was happening was they had mentioned that we worked, Dirk mentioned that we worked 2 shifts. So one team, the red team, would work for 12 hours and the other team would work for another 12 hours. And while one is working, the other is sleeping. Here I am about to go to bed, which is why I have no clothes on. However...
You didn't work 24 hours?
No. Just before I was going to bed, Dirk wanted me to assist him with his glasses, and that is what I am doing here before I go to bed. And then Dirk works for another 12 hours, and then he wakes me up, and I take his place.
We had a ham radio, a short wavelength radio, that we could talk to people on the earth with. You put in, you see Brian working with it here. You put an antenna into the window, and you're very high up, so you can reach many, many, many people. Dave and I particularly wanted to try to talk to someone on each one of the 7 continents. And we were working different shifts of the mission. So he passed over some continents while awake, and I passed over others, and we were collaborating to get all 7 continents. Brian and I were on the same shift, and for 7 days of the flight, Brian poo-pooed. He teased me about caring so much about talking to everybody. Then came the day that we came on to work, Brian and I. Dave had woken me up in the middle of the night to talk to an American researcher on the Antarctic, 7 continents. Now I've got all 7, and I'm very pleased with that. And suddenly I see Brian going, counting up how many he's talked to. He realizes Asia is the only one missing. We come along Japan, where there are hundreds of millions of really keen radio fans. He puts in the antenna, he says, hello, we're here. One person comes back, 7,000 people answer. He picks one guy and says, I heard you, thank you very much, turns off the radio.
Mission accomplished.
Cruel, very cruel. Do you remember it?
Oh yes.
Mr. Bono, shall have a little story.
Oh, I have tons of stories.
We pay him in this mission.
On this mission, I will, and I'll let Dave Leesma help me with this story, because we talked yesterday to students about how do you deal with an emergency or something unexpected. And Dave, as we said, David commanded one shift, I think the red team. Brian was the commander of the blue team, so it meant that I could float. I could be awake anytime I wanted to, because they ran the shifts. And Dave awakened me one night. He said, I don't mean to do this, but we can't talk anymore. What he was saying was, we had no radio communications with the ground. Now that may not sound like a big deal to you. With shuttle, that's a big deal. Because
without cell phones, imagine like
that's right. Just imagine being without your cell phone. We were without a cell phone. We had no way to text, no way to call, no way to email, no way to communicate with the ground. What was more important was people on the ground who sent information up to the shuttle twice a day that said, you are here in the world. You're here in your orbit. In case an emergency comes up and you all have to do an emergency deorbit, in order to find a runway, the shuttle needs to know where it's starting. And it's pretty accurate, but we wanted to be precise, because you're going to come back, from 17,500 miles an hour and slow to 0 and land on a runway that's so wide and so long. And so they said, we've not heard from anybody for half an hour. And we sat and commiserated. Now they hadn't finished the story.
So finish the story.
We communicate through what we call the Tetra satellites, but it's a satellite that's up there, and generally you're on one satellite for about an hour. And when we came over to the new satellite, we had lost communications, and it was, for a little while you think that's okay, because sometimes the ground is off doing something, or they've configured something that you're not too concerned about. But after half an hour, I was starting to get a little bit concerned that we couldn't talk to anybody. So I got Charlie up, and both of us kind of decided that the best thing to do, we have things we can do. We can switch communications gear, we can do a lot of different things, but the best thing to do at that point was just to wait, just to be patient. because it might have been that they configured something wrong, and they were probably frantically working on the ground. In fact, in my brain, I could see the Mission Control Center, oh no, you know, and the flight director's getting all worried about not being able to communicate with us. And when we went back to the next satellite, then we got communications back. And I went,
Dirk Frémouth, vous avez une petite anecdote pour nous. Il y en a beaucoup, j'imagine.
Bien, le moment que je me souviens très bien, c'était juste le moment où on arrive en orbite, donc, après la phase propulsée, pendant 8 minutes et demie, on accélère pour avoir la vitesse suffisamment pour tourner autour de la Terre. Et après 8 minutes et demie, on a cette vitesse et on coupe les moteurs. Et pour moi, c'est un moment très euphorique. Pour moi, on sent qu'on est dans l'espace. On commence à flotter et la première chose, c'est se défaire, sortir de son siège et aller vers les fenêtres pour regarder la Terre. Ça, c'est la première chose. Tout le monde était bien content et tout. Et on voudrait continuer à regarder par les fenêtres. Et à un certain moment, après 5 minutes, il y a le commandant qui nous disait « Allez, au travail maintenant ». On devait commencer à travailler. À ce moment que c'était pas tellement facile de le faire, on n'est pas encore habitué à l'espace et on ne peut pas bouger beaucoup la tête. Et, enfin, on devait commencer à faire notre travail tout de suite.
Alors, peut-être plus sérieusement, je vous propose une question qui a été posée par